something to be an entrepreneur is also that you can't just quit. You don't just quit. It's your business. It's what you started. I mean, there may be a time where you quit and you say enough, but for the most part, it's not like a job where you can just walk out the door. And if you sleep till noon every day, you see what that does. And then if you work hard, you see what that does. And I mean, I've always myself had a lifestyle business too. So it was really important to me to pick up my kids from school. It was really important to me to live where I want to live and, mix up my schedule and do all that kind of stuff. And so, that's what my business shows, what I do. When I work hard, this is what happens. And when I remove myself from the business, this is what happens. And there's neither good nor bad. You don't have to have the biggest business. You can be an entrepreneur and have a lifestyle business too. It's just a choice. It's all a matter of choice, I think.
Welcome to another episode of the Hero of the Hour podcast. Today, Mark has the pleasure of sitting down with the remarkable Julie Subotky. Not only is she the author of the best-selling book, Consider It Done, accomplished 228 of life's trickiest tasks, but she's also the driving force behind the renowned personal concierge service, Consider It Done. Originating from the scenic Aspen, Colorado, and later making its mark in the bustling streets of New York, Julie's venture has been a beacon of efficiency and creativity. From the early days of her career, Julie had an eye for spotting opportunities to enrich lives. Whether it was giving back precious time or elevating special moments, she believed in the power of planning, organization, and a sprinkle of creativity. Consider It Done wasn't just a phrase for Julie, it was a promise she delivered on time and time again. In our interview, we'll dive deep into the inspiration behind her book and the challenges she tackled along the way. We'll journey through Julie's entrepreneurial timeline, retracing her steps from the beginning, exploring her present achievements, and peeking into her future endeavors, especially her exciting foray into the world of coaching. Change is inevitable, and Julie has some profound insights on embracing it and the art of navigating the uncertainties of tomorrow. Let's get started.
Hi, I'm Mark B. Murphy, founder and CEO of Northeast Private Client Group, and we're here for another episode of our Hero of the Hour podcast. And I'm here with Julie Subotky, who is the author of the book, Consider It Done. You can reach Julie at her website, consideritdone.com. And, Julie, thank you for joining me. I'd love to just start with the book because I know it's filled with practical tips and hints and a lot of really funny, hilarious stories, from your journey. I'd love you to share with the people watching this, why you wrote the book and tell us a little bit about some of the zany stories that are in the book.
Well, thanks for having me. And I wrote the book because I did have so many crazy stories. And, my business took me all over the place. I kind of started it just because people needed to get things done and they didn't know who to turn to. So I raised my hand. I'll do it. I'll do whatever. And so one task turns into the next. And pretty soon I was, getting armed security guards on airplanes and doing all kinds of crazy tasks for people. But it was from that to, can you find my discontinued running shoe? And then I would have to track that down. So it kind of ran the gamut. It went all over the place on what we had to do. And everyone said, you have so many stories, you should write a book. So I did.
I think that's wonderful. I did notice that you started. It said to me, I was reading, reading through it and going through the notes, and just tell a little about your journey. how that started, because you're a leader. I would say, would you describe yourself as a leadership development coach?
I am now.
So
yeah.
The question I always ask people, I sort of think when I'm talking to a client is like, where did you start? Where are you right now? And where are you going? Yeah.
So I started getting things done for people, and that seemed like a good business. So I had that business going for a while, and one thing led to another. And what I really love is working with people. And so I started to go down that path, because when I'm doing things for people and getting tasks done for people, I turned that into a business, sure, but really what I'm doing is helping people. And I think that my passion is more about helping people. And so I started down the road of coaching, and I got certified as an integral coach first, which is mind, heart, and body, and working with people on developmentally changing themselves in order to change either their businesses or something that wasn't working for them. And so that led me to all kinds of development topics. And I most recently finished a master's in psychology, just to add to
Wow.
all that I'm doing. Thank you.
That's by the way, that's quite a task. I actually I have a son that is considering going that route as well. He's at least exploring that right now. But that's I've always said, I have a finance and accounting background. I've always said my life would have been better served if I did psychology and philosophy, because as long as the people you work with are people, as long as the clients or customers are people, we're really in the people business. But so that's quite an undertaking to go do that. We're key business strategists, critical thinkers, financial advisors, primarily to entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial thinking people. I know you went from an entrepreneur to a coach. Tell me what so many people tell me that because they own a business, they tell me they're entrepreneurs, and they're really not entrepreneurs. They bought themselves a job. What is being an entrepreneur? How do you differentiate that, or how do you define that?
I so agree with you. And I work with a lot of entrepreneurs as well. And I think there are certain people that have an entrepreneurial mindset. And I really think that those are the people that figure things out, really resourceful. They didn't necessarily, sure, you can be an entrepreneur and buy a business or buy a job, like you said, but people who are entrepreneurs, they tend to band together, and they have this really unique way of thinking and approaching the world in many cases, not across the board. But, entrepreneurship takes on, it takes an ability to really be able to be resilient and to work with change. And that's what I do in my coaching business, is I work with people in transition and change. And so when they're going through big changes in their life, that's where I work with them. And I think that being an entrepreneur really prepared me for that. And I also think that many people who are entrepreneurs tend to have done many little entrepreneurial things along the way. So that's another key distinctive quality for me.
I actually I'm a believer that entrepreneurism and capitalism are sort of under attack. I think it's, and I think that there is a, I think that, that all of the abundance in this country has been, or much of it has been created by entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial thinking people. And I think if we were to ever lose that as the foundation of this country, that would be a problem. And I just, one of the things I'm passionate about is not only working with all the entrepreneurs we work with, but making sure young people understand that you can do anything you want in this country as long as you're willing to work hard enough, and you're reasonably smart and willing to do the work. And one of the things I find with, when I'm working with younger people, and I'm passionate about doing that, is I find that sometimes their goals are incongruent with their actions. They want to be billionaires, but they want to sleep also till noon at the same time. They want to do this. The part of it that somehow the accountability and responsibility and the work that's required is not being. They're not doing the being there. They're not, and I'm not sure how that disconnect has occurred, because I remember when somebody said I need to find myself, my father said, I found you. You're right here. Now get to work. And and I'm saying we coddle, I think, our youngsters a little bit. I know you. Go ahead, please. Share.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that there is something to being an entrepreneur is also that you can't just quit. You don't just quit. It's your business. It's what you started. I mean, there may be a time where you quit and you say enough, but for the most part, it's not like a job where you can just walk out the door. And if you sleep till noon every day, you see what that does. And then if you work hard, you see what that does. And I mean, I've always myself had a lifestyle business too. So it was really important to me to pick up my kids from school. It was really important to me to live where I want to live, and, mix up my schedule and do all that kind of stuff. And so, that's what my business shows, what I do. When I work hard, this is what happens. And when when I remove myself from the business, this is what happens. And there's neither good nor bad. You don't have to have the biggest business. You can be an entrepreneur and have a lifestyle business too. It's just a choice. It's all a matter of choice, I think.
I just think the other thing I also find myself, you can talk about like a Simon Sinek why, or why you put this together. Like I was hoped we'd be successful. I thought we'd make money, but this was my vehicle to make other people's lives better. And but as I keep going back and forth is that money is never the end goal. To me, I think one of the reasons to start a business or be entrepreneurial is to elevate other people. I know you've done a lot of training with momentum. You've got obviously recently got your master's degree. It sounds like, you've had a lifetime of coaching, education. Tell me what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And as you were speaking, it made me think of the heroes in your podcast. And when I was really thinking about, okay, heroes, what are heroes? And the thing that comes back to me every time is that heroes are people who are courageous. And I really think that courageousness and their outstanding achievements and their noble qualities, that's really a definition of a hero. But for me, courage is the thing. And I think that really defines what a hero is to me. And so I think that entrepreneurship really requires courage, but so does everyday life.
Who's a hero to you?
Yeah, so I think when I was also thinking about that, and I think everybody can be heroes, right? And there's like the typical heroes, like Martin Luther King or Amelia Earhart, and there's all those kinds of heroes. And then there's like, my kid can be a hero. But I think that the defining factor for me is that, somebody who really, really takes that extra step. Courage is, it's a core virtue. So in positive psychology, we have 4 virtues that we look at. And it really is a defining quality of people. And it's not just about someone who's not scared. It's about someone who's willing to take a risk and willing to take that extra step.
We had, I found in my business, because, it doesn't matter where you go to get trained about finance or accounting or other things. The one innumerable fact I had is we have an expression that says good leaders create followers, great leaders create other great leaders. And I aspire to be a great leader. Others can share whether I'm on track or not. But I think the idea is that it's amazing how our business, one of the key things that allowed our business to grow was, I think, the better leader I became, the better leaders we created in our organization. That sort of cemented the organization. I know you talk a lot about being a leadership development coach, and how in your work, how does leadership play into the success that you teach and how your clients have?
Well, I think that's really true, right? What you're saying is the better leader that you are, you'll lift up your entire company, and not just your company, but the people in your company. And so by you being a better leader and you working on your own things that are in your way, you will then lift other people up along with you, and in turn the organization. And I think that when people, especially entrepreneurs, they oftentimes get merged with their business. And so it's like, I'm my business is me. And it's hard to define it sometimes. And it's like, my business is doing great, so I'm really in a good place, and my business is not doing well, and so now I'm in a bad place. And it's actually just a business. You can still be doing well and your business is not doing well. Like if you came in to run my business, you would run it a lot differently than I run it. And I would run yours a lot differly, because
well, you're welcome. You can. What time are you coming in?
Right. But like, it's like, yeah, I don't have an attachment to your business the same way. When I think about entrepreneurship like that, I think about my grandfather who used to fix watches. And I just remember him like with the glasses and the magnifying thing on the glasses even. And he would like meticulously be fixing these watches. And I think about my business like that sometimes, is what if I could just put all the pieces into place? Like, it actually is a thing that I could put pieces and make them work faster and more efficiently and better. I don't have to be attached to it. It doesn't have to affect my well-being. It's just a business.
One of the things I've become very passionate about is that I think a lot of people have limiting mindsets, and I think I might have had one for a long time where you say, well, what's important? And it's important is health is important, wealth is important, meaning or purpose is important, having love in your life is important, and sometimes I think people, like, you'll meet a lot of people who think, well, for me to get one or two of those things, I have to give up one or two of those things. And I think that I totally reject that, because I think a life without all four of those things is not a life well lived. And it's interesting that people need help with different things in their life. And by the way, sometimes your life's out of balance. We have a little more of this or a little more of that. But I think the goal is to have balance in that life, and to have I like people to have financial balance. I like to have life balance as well. Tell me a little about the coaching process that you have, the kinds of people that you work with, and kinds of stuff you do with them. And if there's a story or two that would entertain our audience, I think that would be even better.
So I actually really like to work with people when they're in transition and change. And I think that can be really jarring for people. And so I like to talk about this liminal space. And when you go from something that's known to something that's unknown, there's this space in the middle. And you can't know what's on the other side until you actually get there. So this is how I brought my coaching work into my own moving business. Was people are actually transitioning physically and changing their space, and it's jarring, and people therefore hate moving. And so I brought that aspect into it. And what I do is I think about what needs to happen in transition and change. And what really needs to happen is you need to keep things solid. So keep some stability. So in instability, bring stability. It's really sounds simple.
It's counterintuitive. Yeah, but when you think about it, that makes actually perfect sense for me. There are two questions, everyone has the questions they've been asked 10,000 times, or the times they've thought about. And I know two of those quite powerful questions for you are, what am I doing with my life? And the second is, what am I meant to be doing? How is that relevant in your coaching?
I think, well, that's often a time when people are having a transition or a change in their life, right? So think about the big things that happen: death, divorce, an illness, kids going off to school, selling a business, things like that. And then they're in this spot of like, now what do I do? I don't know what I do, what I want to do, what am I meant to be doing? And a lot of times people, maybe they don't even have to work anymore for money, and then they just don't know what to do, and they're kind of lost. And so in this space where there is change, it's like, how do I get to the other side? And I think this happened a lot because of the pandemic, right? So we were all like home for a couple of years, really. And there was a big, collective trauma, if you want to take it that far. But, it really became clear, like, what's important, like the things that you just named. Family is important. Health is important. All of these core things are important. And I'm not going to put up with the other things. But now what? Right? So I'm not going to keep the job that I don't like, and I'm not going to live in the place I don't like to live, and I'm going to move, but now what? And so then people are like in this space of, now what do I do? And so how do I figure that out? And also, how do I figure out how to really make transitions easier? When you look at natural disasters and other kinds of traumatic events that have occurred, and you look at the research and how people emerge from those traumas, they emerge in community. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. You can't necessarily do these things by yourself. So that's good for a coach, but it also, you need the people around you. And we were not designed to be on this planet by ourselves. We're in community all the time. And so our offices become communities, our families become communities, obviously, but our, extended communities. And what are those communities? And how can we then put stability in, and intentionally you can create little rituals, and it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be, a lunch every Friday at the same place, just something that's stable in instability. When I move people, I keep their nightstands like the same, so that when they get into bed at night, it's like things are all different. And where am I? What am I doing? And then I open the drawer next to me and it's like, oh yeah, I'm here. Right. So little things can make a big difference, but really being intentional about in instability, bring stability, keep something on your calendar that's really stable, and remembering that people emerge in community.
Yeah, there are a lot of disconnected people. I mean, you can't, if you ever try to find a family therapist or an MSW or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, good luck. You know that there's no capacity with anybody. I think so many people have been disrupted by this. Do you think I mean, the world has opened up again, at least we think, although there's some places trying to lock it down again, or at least talking about it. Do you think, how long do you think it takes us to get back to the new normal? Or do you think we're here?
I mean, I think we have to just know that things are always changing and we don't know. And so how do we learn to live with that? How can we live with the not knowing? And that to me is a place that I like to work with people, is how can we actually be okay not being okay? Because things are going to change. Just when we get on track, someone gets diagnosed with an illness, or just when we get on track, something happens. And so how can we really start to be okay with these things?
You know, one of the things that that I think is so underappreciated, you talk about community, is, and it could be somebody you're close to, it could be somebody that's an acquaintance, it can also be a stranger. But it's amazing to me over a long career how just a couple of words of kindness to somebody, which meant nothing. It didn't mean nothing to me. It was not gratuitous. It was truthful, and but it was kind to somebody. How much they took that internalized and how much that made a difference in their life. Just like I'm sure if you said something cruel to that person, it hurt them. And I think sometimes people don't understand how just being kind to somebody can impact their lives. Like I get such a kick out of somebody who said, you know, you passed me in the hallway 15 years ago and you said this to me, which I didn't even remember the conversation. And they said that made such an impact in my life, and it's helped me do things. I just want to thank you for that. And you realize, you know, it cost me nothing. It was organic. It was real, but it was not, you know, it wasn't something I put a lot of thought or effort around. I just noticed something was going on. And I find so many people are not, you know, that the more we're on social media, the more we're on video games, the more we're have our face in our phones all the time. I just think we're getting farther and farther away from community. And I don't think that's healthy for anybody.
No, it's so important what you're talking about, because think about the times that people have told you that, and there's probably many, many more that they haven't told you about that you've made an impact. And then there are times when we've all made an impact in the other way too.
Yeah.
When did you snap at someone? When did you know, like, when did I do this stuff? And we don't know what people are coming from or what they went through, or, I mean, forget about how they grew up, and like all of that stuff is in the mix as well, right? So not only what happened before they got to the meeting room, but their cultural norms, their communities, how they grew up, all of that contributes to how they show up in a room and how they come to a meeting. And there's also research done that, you know, when you write down something about someone, so if you take that nice comment and you write it down and you actually read it to them, that's when it makes the impact. It changes the mood of both the person reading it and the receiver. And it's really, really impactful.
The other thing I also find interesting is, you know, we're such a texting society where people think it's efficient. I find it for the most part inefficient. You know, text is efficient, saying, "Oh, I'm in traffic. I'm 10 minutes late, Julie. I'll be right there," as opposed to back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you still don't know what we really talk about. You didn't know if I was happy about it, angry about it. It was miscommunication central, which I find the lack of personality or community or being able to touch somebody. You know, I realize that we're on Zoom. Zoom is a transportation device as much as a communication device. but I still don't. There's still something to be able to reach out to somebody, put your arm on their arm, or look across the table, or I think a lot of the magic in relationships is not existing because we're living on text or living on Zoom now, and it's much more efficient than getting on a plane to fly cross country to meet with a client or to do those things. But I'm not sure where we're going with that. And I think with mental health also, it's hard to be part of community when you're isolated on a computer all day.
Yeah, I think keeping that stuff in mind though is super important, and the impact that it does have when somebody picks up the phone. And so, even when you're in a work situation or when you're in a personal situation, remembering the difference that you're going to be if you actually pick up the phone and somebody else just sent a text, thanks for the interview, and you're the one handwriting a letter still.
I was going to say a very smart woman who I know had the quote, "The essence of knowledge is self-knowledge." What does that mean?
That's not my quote. I think that when we get to know ourselves, we really can change a lot of things, and we get to make decisions. And we can't make changes for other people. We can't decide how other people are going to react or really do anything but change ourselves. And so the more we learn about ourselves and the more we can grow, I think the better off we are in any area of our lives.
It's like when you go to marriage counseling and you start going there to change the other person, you realize the only person you can change is yourself, and be aware of yourself. That's the magic elixir. I thought I'm seeing that the kind of topic of what this discussion should be about is, it seems it's about navigating change. Navigating. It sounds like that's what you do for a living, is navigate change. And I just, you mentioned the known versus the unknown. Talk to me about a little self-awareness or resilience, or what do you think people need to be able to navigate change properly?
I mean, resilience for sure is helpful. Courage is also helpful. I think that navigating change, there's sort of like a dance, right? And you don't know what's coming. And I think that one of the things that we don't do, especially in our culture, is we don't like to be with the uncomfortable. And I think that's super important thing to learn to do, because things change moment by moment. But also, there's nothing wrong with being uncomfortable. There's nothing wrong with being sad, with the emotions that we push away. I just don't think we can get through our uncomfortable times, our hurt, our sadness. I don't think we can get through them without experiencing those feelings. The more we push them away, the bigger and louder they come back. And it's just a way to express ourselves. And I think that's been pushed to the side in our culture. We've been taught, like, put on a happy face and you can get through this and it's okay. And yes, it is. And what else can we do to be able to be with these feelings and to be with this unknown? And that it takes work. It takes practice. It takes other people. It's really hard to do it on your own. Really hard.
From a psychological standpoint, that seems spot on to me. But from a business standpoint, working with a business owner or an entrepreneur, a lot of people are very comfortable playing in their comfort zone, and they have aspirations to get out. Do you think that they don't play outside their comfort zone because they don't have a roadmap or help to get there, just because they're too afraid, just because they don't want to do it? Why don't people want to kick down the damn door and get to the place they want to be?
I mean, a lot of times it is because they don't want to get uncomfortable. And a lot of times our successes are so big. So especially people who have had big successes, they do what works. We all do what works, right? Because it works. And so great. But then we get to a point where it's like, okay, now what's needed? Now what's not working? Now what's in my way? And like we were talking about before with entrepreneurs, we're in our own way. Right? So how do we work through our own stuff to then have our companies successful? I think that that's super important with entrepreneurs and with any kind of leaders. We all have our limitations. We all kind of made up these stories and figured out a way to navigate the world. So, we come into the world, and then we have all these factors that we use to make sense of the world. And so we have our families, and we have our communities, and we have just, oh, this is safe, this is not safe. And so we have a way that we navigate the world, and everybody's is different. Even yours are different from your siblings, right? So same families, yet we all navigate differently. And so I think when we start to see like, oh, there's other ways, then we can have things be different. And especially when the world is throwing things at us that are different, right? Like, we don't know what's coming next. I mean, who knows? Climate change, politics, like so many factors we don't know. But when you can start to be okay with adapting to what comes, then there's more possibility.
I've always shared with myself, that when you try to be a disruptor in your businesses or your industry, you're going to fail. I always say I have a million ideas. Feel free to hate them all. But I've kind of convinced myself that anytime I invest money or time in something that fails, I just refer to it as a form of market research, because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have done other things that have been wildly successful. And that you just got to be in the game. Talk about navigating change. I know you've moved your family to Paris. That's quite a big change. A lot of people would not take 9 and 13, 9 and 13-year-old boys and uproot them and just go to Paris. Tell me about that. Tell me about the thought process behind that, and what's the end game there.
So my boys grew up in Manhattan, and I really always wanted to bring them to live somewhere else and live overseas and experience a different culture. And I got divorced and thought, oh, well, that's the end of that. And then a few years later, I started thinking, why is this the end of that idea? Why does that have to be the end of this idea? I have a great relationship with their dad, and we really have a good co-parenting relationship. So we talked about it and we worked it out, and then we had a pandemic, and I just decided, like, if I don't do it now, I'm going to lose my window to do it. And so I brought them over here, and it's been great so far. It's been really, really great so far. So they're learning French, and they're in one's in a French school, one's in an international school. We're really just having a different experience being over here.
Well, I would say my good friend Fred Joyal, his latest book is Bold as a Superpower. So clearly boldness is one of your superpowers. And I think your children are going to be the beneficiaries of your boldness going forward. I just want to thank you for joining us today. I hope that we're going to get to spend a lot more time together, you and Lisa and I. And I just want to, again, remind people, I just want to make sure that I get it right, is that if you have any questions for Julie, you can go to consideritdone.com to connect to Julie. And the name of her book is Consider It Done. It's accomplished 228 of life's trickiest tasks. And I think it's a great read for everybody. And I think everybody should buy it. And I just, as I said, either when Lisa and I and the kids are in Paris or when you're back in New York, we'd love to see you. And
I love that.
Just thank you so much for your time, and just thank you for your expertise and spending some time with us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks,
for
Julie.
having me. Look forward to meeting you in person.
Thanks, Julie. All right. Bye-bye.